Hello again, I'm Zoltán Leoszky from Lombiq Technologies. Now we have our local development environment ready for our .NET site, and we also developed some very nice styling that we want to apply to our actual production website. So when you are working with any kind of application, that step is usually called something like deployment, production rollout, something like that. We call it deployment. And how you deploy a media theme is by using the deployment feature of Orchard. We didn't want to be more creative with the names. We also have some documentation on that, of course. If you check out the media theme projects documentation, there's a whole section about how this deployment works. Now, you have two approaches here. All of these are automated to some degree, but it depends on you whether you would like to create a deployment package locally and then upload it manually, or you want to automate everything. How you would do it manually is by using our .NET tool, this one, that packages up your media theme into a zip file, which will also be a deployment package compatible with Orchard. And then on your production site, you can just import that. Now, we won't do that because we have something even cooler, which is using remote deployment. Remote deployment means that you are not uploading the zip file that this deployment tool creates manually, but you are using the remote deployment feature of Orchard. This is something built into Orchard. We are just utilizing it. There's also two approaches here, and we again will go with the cooler one. One approach would be to still use this command line tool and do the remote deployments from your local machine. So you would run the command line tool, do a remote deployment to your production site, and that's it. That's fine, of course, but what we will do this time is that we'll use a CI, continuous integration-based deployment with GitHub Actions. If you don't know GitHub Actions yet, it's one of the built-in features of every GitHub project. It's an automation tool. It can be used for continuous integration as well. What we'll do is that we will set up that part of the remote deployment that we have to configure on our production website, which is documented here. And then we will use one of the readily available, reusable GitHub Actions workflows of media theme to automatically deploy that to our website on every push to a certain branch. Which means that after that, once you push something to your repository, within 20-30 seconds, it will be out on your production website. How cool is that? So first we'll need to go to our production website, and on the admin, we'll need to set up a remote deployment client. This is something that's available by default if you use the blog recipe. Otherwise, you might need to enable the feature. But let me go here. A remote deployment client is kind of like a username password for remote deployment. But what we call username is client name, and what we call password is API key here. Now, the client name can be something like media theme demo, of course. Let's not go too crazy. And I will add an auto-generated long password here. It's important that this is safe. You will see it in a second though. We also need to utilize this URL. This will be necessary as our deployment target. We'll need to configure it. So let's keep this page open. And if we take a look at the corresponding media theme documentation again, here we have the GitHub Actions workflow code that we need to use in our own repository to utilize that reusable workflow that media theme makes available. So let's actually continue with that, and then we'll need to set up some repository secrets, and we'll need to first of all allow GitHub Actions to run for our repository. So let me copy this, and let's go back to our solution. In the SDK, we already have a workflows solution folder here. And as you can see, actually there's a build workflow available. You might need it, you might not need it. I think generally it's useful. It builds your solution. It doesn't do much else out of the box. So if you need to run tests or something else, then you will need to add that. But that's a good basic check. It also has some spell checking, which is a nice thing as well, but you can remove these. You won't need this most possibly, and validate pull request is interesting for example, checking pull requests for merge conflicts and adding a comment that, hey, you have a merge conflict, please merge. This is interesting if you have multiple people working on the repository. I will leave it here, but you can remove it. But there's one thing we definitely need here is a workflow for our new workflow. Let me remove the unnecessary one here as well. And this will be just about deploying our theme. So we can call it something like media theme deployment. Okay. And let me add it as a file here as well. So yeah, GitHub and our new workflow. And I'm pasting what I've copied from the media theme documentation. A couple of things that we need to change here. Well, the name can remain. And by default, this will only be triggered by pushes to a certain branch. Now, we haven't worked with the repository yet, so let's actually push something to our repository. Let me open a Git client here. By the way, this is Git extensions. And as we have seen before, our demo dev branch is here. So we can commit everything that we have done until now here too. So yeah, here's the commit window. Let's not commit the media theme deployment workflow yet. That will come afterward. Otherwise, all the other changes here seem what we actually need. Yeah, including our new theme project with the recipe and all the corresponding files. We also have the favicon files that we have seen working, and of course our CSS file. So let's add this as the media theme done. Let's be optimistic and let's say it's done. And now let's get back to our workflow. So what we first need to use is our demo-dev branch here. Secondly, this will also only trigger when files change under a given path. That's useful because otherwise it will be useless to or wasteful to do a deployment. If I change something in the auto setup configuration, for example, then why would we do a media theme deployment? Nothing changed in our theme. So our theme is under source themes indeed, but we need to change its name. So let me change this here. The rest of this expression just means that anything under that path. As you can see, we have a single job here, and the single job utilizes the reusable workflow from media theme. And then we have to configure a couple of things. We have 3 secrets, so 3 things that we shouldn't write directly into this workflow. Please really don't do that, but rather keep them as repository secrets. The three secrets, yeah, it's a tongue breaker. The 3 secrets are the URL that we have seen here, as well as we need the remote deployment client's name and API key that we configured. And we need to create corresponding repository secrets on GitHub. So let's do that. There are some default sample secret names here. Let's use something better. Now, you can work with any number of media theme projects in a single solution like this. With auto setup, you can set up multiple tenants that use those different themes, and then you can have multiple such deployment workflows to deploy those themes to separate sites. Perhaps that will be the case for you as well. So maybe it's useful to name these secrets specific to the theme as well. Not just deployment URL, but more like media theme deployment, media theme demo deployment URL. And use the same prefix for the other 2 secrets as well, like media theme demo deployment client name, and then media theme demo deployment client API key. All right, and now let's configure these repository secrets on GitHub too. Let me first take this one, and let's go back to GitHub. Here's our repository. Now, first things first. Under Actions, we see that, well, Actions are currently disabled. The reason being that this is a forked repository. Now, you might not want the same workflows that we use in the SDK, so that's understandable. But in this case, we actually do want to run our own actions. So let's configure the corresponding secrets. And here under, here under security and secrets and variables, we can configure the corresponding secrets. So first, the deployment URL, that should be this URL here. Secondly, we'll need to configure this secret, the client name, new repository secret, and that was, of course, this media theme demo. And thirdly, we'll need to configure this deployment client API key secret. Here, what we'll use the super secret password that I created off screen, which will be this one. But don't tell everyone, and don't try to use it because I will change until you see this video. And secret. All right, we have the three secrets configured. So that means that now our workflow should work, probably. Let's actually check it out. But For that, let me also hit Ctrl+Shift+S here in the solution, so the solution folder changes are applied as well. And we also need to configure this thing here, theme path. This should be the file system path to your theme, so pretty much exactly the same that we have configured here. Unfortunately, we can't really make this simpler. And lastly, base theme. In our theme, we have the base theme configured directly like this. If you have a string as the base theme in the manifest, then the deployer tool will be able to parse it out and you don't need to configure anything. If you have something fancier here, like a constant reference, as we do with the media theme bridge reference, then you will need to hand configure it here. And otherwise, if you don't need a media theme, then you don't need anything. All right, so now it seems that we are done with this. Let's actually push to our repository and let's see what happens. So let me commit this change, so the new workflow and the new solution, or the solution file changes. So let's add that as this. And now let's see what happens. Let's go back to the GitHub repository, and under Actions, we now have this deploy media theme to .NEST workflow. And sure enough, a couple of seconds later, we'll see the validate pull request workflow running, which is one of the built-in ones of the SDK. But we should also have the deployment. We should also see the deployment workflow running. Now, the issue while it's not running is because we haven't changed anything in our theme yet, actually. So let's do that. Because remember, the trigger here is changes in the theme project. Now, what can we change? Let's add something stupid here, and in the very beginning of the body tag, let's add a hello message. Of course, this doesn't make too much sense, but we just want to see it changing. But we could equally well change something else in the layout. We could add a new shape override, or we could change the CSS or whatever else. So let's push this. And once it's done, let's go back again to our repository. And in a few seconds, we should see the deployment starting as well. And as you can see, it already happened. By the way, if you have an open source repository, this is free. So you don't even need to pay for these deployments. In a few seconds, we should see this deploy media theme step completing. If anything goes wrong, you will see error messages here too. Usually the whole process takes less than something like 30 seconds, well, 31 in this case. Awesome, it's completed. Let's check out our site now. And if we go back, it actually did work. You see, we are on the .NET site now, but the favicon is now new. We have the hello message here, which is our beautiful color, so it actually works. And of course, if we want to fix some issue like this, we can just do it again. And again, we can do a commit here. We could remove the demo template change. Of course, this could have been also a revert commit. And again, what will happen is that the workflow will kick off, and in a couple of seconds, our theme will be deployed. The workflow is still a GitHub Actions workflow as usual. So if you want to customize it, you can. You can add your own triggers. You can do other processing apart from just the deployments happening. It's up to you. A lot of things are possible here. GitHub Actions as usual. But if you don't want or don't need anything fancy, just running this reusable workflow will yield you that, well, in 30 seconds or so, your site will get the update. Yeah, it's done now. And once we refresh the site, which also restarts the tenant, the debug change is indeed gone. So I think it's pretty cool. I actually use this on my personal website as well. And I recommend you to play around with it and check out on your website and probably start building something for clients as well. DotNest is very flexible. It has a lot of batteries included. And if you happen to miss a feature, either something built into Orchard or something third-party, perhaps a module or theme that actually you developed, then let us know, because we can also add it. But otherwise, media theming is available, like we have seen, with a lot of customization. So I hope it will be suitable for you as well. Thank you.